Okay, hi, and welcome to another segment of our KidScoop Media Online. Today we have Culver City Council member Daniel Lee, and our scoopers are Lilibet, Julia, and Sarah. Okay, hello. Lilibet, do you want to start and ask the first question of Mr. Lee?
Okay. Mr. Lee, I was wondering if the city's doing anything to help small businesses stay in business.
Well, very generally, we're a little bit limited in what we can do, but on the federal level, there's an SBA loan program that small businesses can use, and it will more or less give them a loan for up to 3 months, but I think it's 10 weeks in order for them to stay in business. But if they keep up to, I think it's 75 or 80% of their people employed, then the loan will be forgiven. So it'll be like giving them free money. Also, there are a lot of banks that are voluntarily delaying payments for small businesses. And there is an effort by two of our council members, Joran Erickson and Thomas Small, called Feed Culver City. And they're basically starting with one restaurant, Meat in Paris, and they are basically taking donations so that that restaurant can provide food for the people in need in our community, but also the money can go to support that particular business. So they hope to move to other restaurants in the future.
Okay, great. Sarah, you're next.
So I had a question just about how your day today has gone. So what kinds of decisions and what have you been making today, and what have you been working on today in terms of dealing with the virus?
Well, today has actually been an incredibly slow day, but I could talk a bit more about this week.
Oh, yeah.
But the county of Los Angeles and the city of Los Angeles basically extended the shelter at home or stay in home order until May 15th. So our city manager passed an order last night to do the same. So at our next 1 or 2 city council meetings, we will have to confirm that order as a council. We also today went over the classifications of which businesses are essential and which are not. There are slight changes to that. Somehow pawn shops are in the list now, but it hasn't been super busy today. But this week, the highlights were I confirmed with the police and fire chief that our psychiatrist that we get from the LA County Department of Mental Health, who's been ordered to shelter at home, will still be available by phone if people have a mental health emergency during this time of crisis. And that was a big priority for me because I know a lot of the calls that we get at the police and fire department are mental health related. And this entire emergency has made a lot of people more likely to have a mental health emergency.
I have a question, a follow-up on that. Is the gun store considered essential?
Unfortunately, it is, and that decision is more or less out of our control due to threats of litigation by the National Rifle Association and a number of other gun rights groups. I have a very different opinion. I wish we could close the store, and I'm very upset at the current state of affairs, but unfortunately it's out of our hands at the moment.
Okay. Julia, what do you got?
Hi, so Mr. Lee, I was wondering if Culver City followed under LA County's COVID-19 restrictions, if we have to follow their same rules.
So generally, the County of Los Angeles, for most of their restrictions and rules that come down they generally apply to unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County. However, for the most part, they more or less aligned with the rules that come from LA City. And when LA City and LA County have aligned, we've more or less voted to have our rules fall in line as well. But we do have the option of doing something different if we feel we need to for Culver City.
But we haven't changed anything, so we're following the same things.
Yes, yes.
Great. Lizabeth, you're next.
I was just wondering, like, what are 3 things that you just want every citizen in Culver City to know?
3 things that I want every citizen in Culver City to know. Well, one, the city's still open. All of our government services are still functioning. We're making it a priority to make sure that everything still functions and everyone knows. The city council is still working. We're working a lot more. That would be number 2. And we have a city council meeting on Monday. And then 3, I guess this might be the most important. You can still attend our city council meetings. They're virtual now. You can either look at them on our closed caption cable channel on our website, or now on our YouTube stream at Culver City Gov. So hopefully we'll be able to both continue to respond to this crisis and then also continue normal city business, because I know there are a couple things Vote 16 wanted to see move forward that have been delayed.
Great. Sarah.
Yeah, so this kind of piggybacks on what you were just saying, but what other city measures, what other city issues are you currently trying to handle at the city level that have very little or nothing to do with the coronavirus? I know that the rent control in the Inglewood oil fields were 2 pretty big issues before all of this hit. Is progress still being made on those fronts?
Some limited progress is being made. I think our city council meeting on Monday will be our first non-emergency city council meeting we've had in about a month. And we've had 6 or 7 emergency city council meetings. So moving forward with rent control, that's a priority. So we can work with renters and developers and landowners to see what our final rules are going to be, so people have some type of consistency, or they know what to expect in the future. Of course, finalizing our amortization study to close down the Inglewood oil field, strengthening our polystyrene ban that was on the agenda on one of the meetings. And then, of course, there are, time dependent things like, if we are going to vote to lower the municipal voting age to 16 and put it on the ballot, I think we're quickly running out of time in which to actually vote on that. So there are a lot of things I hope we can start moving forward now that we know how to do things virtually, but there will still be a lot of extra meetings.
Julia, you're next. Oh, sorry, start. I have to unmute you. Okay, go for it.
I know that you had mentioned a couple of resources that Culver City is offering, but are there any other resources that the city of Culver City is offering to residents and businesses during this time?
There's a good rundown of all the resources available if you just go to culvercity.org/corona. You can also sign up for updates from the city. We usually send out an email each day. And then there are also frequent updates on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and of course, all of our emails are on the website. But, very generally, we have our universal eviction moratorium for residential, which means that you can't be evicted for any reason during the time of this emergency. There's a commercial moratorium, but it more just applies to rental properties and not commercial buildings. For commercial buildings themselves, like restaurants, that's more up to the banks and hopefully the state or the federal government at some point. But a more in-depth list of resources, specifically for people who are food insecure. Our senior center is still doing food delivery to seniors who are food insecure. We're working with Culver United Methodist and a number of other churches in the area to distribute food, also with the Whole Nine Gallery. We're working with a set of volunteers there to distribute food. And then Blackbird House, which is a co-working space right off Jefferson, is providing COVID-19 testing for low-income individuals.
Great. Lilybeth, you're next.
I was wondering if public transportation will continue to be open.
Yes, in a limited form. Right now, public transportation is more or less only for essential employees. We've sort of been downgrading it based on ridership and public health guidelines. Initially, we were just entering through the back of the bus, and then we moved to the Sunday schedule. And now it's more or less only for essential trips and essential employees. Great.
Sarah.
So this question is going to be taking a complete left turn from what we've just been talking about, but it's something that I remembered at a city council meeting. There was someone who came in and was pitching their virtual voting system in which people could vote via an app on their phones. The city council didn't seem super excited about it when it happened, but I was wondering, I didn't really hear any follow-up about it, and I was wondering if that was something that was at all being considered.
Well, most of our voting, and if I want to clarify, are you, because I'm not sure I remember this presentation, are you talking electoral voting or the city council voting on a particular issue?
Electoral voting.
Yeah, that's a little bit more complicated. Since we voted to consolidate elections starting this November, our elections are more or less run by the county now. So any type of change of, the technology that we use for voting would need to go through the county. And as we saw earlier this year, the county rolled out a new electronic voting system that we do, of course, use in Culver City. But since our elections are consolidated now, the short answer is that would have to go through the county. The longer answer for me, as someone who has designed a web app or two, I would be cautious about going with someone who doesn't have a very long track record of security and privacy. I think eventually we'll all be voting in some virtual form. It might be a small network that's detached from the internet and then having results uploaded later. But right now, no. I sort of think I know where you're going. I'd be more in favor of really focusing on vote by mail right now. And in California, everyone automatically gets a vote by mail ballot as it is. So if we were still dealing with this crisis when the general election happened, I would hope that more of the focus would be on reminding people that they already have a vote by mail ballot and they don't need to go outside and they can just send it in.
Okay, great. Julia, you're next.
So you mentioned that public transportation is for mostly essential business currently. Is there any way to verify that someone is riding for essential business, or is this something that is just being announced to the population?
It's basically an honor code type of thing. For the most part, unless people are doing something that's explicitly prohibited, we're trying not to send the police out to, enforce around any type of violation. When we do get calls about large groups in a park, or just earlier this week, there was a car dealership that was still basically operating their sales floor. So some police officers did go out to shut that down. But for the most part, we're relying on people to more or less pay attention to what the public health experts are saying and stay home. And for the most part, unless people have to go out to work to support their families, they are definitely staying home.
I have a question. Is there a violation if you're not wearing a mask outside? Walking a dog or on the sidewalk or in the markets?
It's technically a violation of our order, but the same sort of process would go into place. We wouldn't necessarily want to fine someone. We would, follow up to whoever reported it and then, inform whoever the violator was that they cannot be outside without a mask. This is fairly new, and a lot of people have been sheltering in place for a number of weeks and haven't been outside. I think for me, it's important that everyone wear a mask, but more important is for everyone to realize that wearing a mask alone is not protecting you. It's protecting the spread of the virus. If you really want to be protected as much as possible, you should stay home.
Okay, great. Lilibet.
So I know it's probably too soon to say, but when would an approximate guess to be for when public outdoor spaces would open, and what would be the measures that the city would take to make sure that everybody would be safe?
Yeah, it's early right now, but people like Dr. Fauci, who is one of the only people that I trust in this administration, think that by the fall, we should be able to not go back to normal, but engage in more outdoor activities regularly. He's been saying recently that there will probably be a bit more of a transition period this summer, where more people go to work for some period of time with increased protection, face mask, gloves, PPE in general. And then later, once we get data based on how our curve looks with those, greater number of people outside, then we can decide whether or not more people should go. But it's not going to be until the fall. I think everyone's hoping that by the time school comes back in session this fall, we will have made enough progress so that people can go back to a similar routine with greater protection, but it really depends on what people do right now and if people stay home right now.
Sarah.
How does the city plan on dealing with lost revenue?
So that's a big question. For the most part, very early on, I think maybe in our second or third emergency meeting, the city manager made a recommendation that I think it was about 40 million and proposed spending for this year would be shelved. And some of that was just transfers to a savings account. Others was, buying new equipment or hiring new people. And we're actively looking at ways in which we can cut our budget without cutting services. So that's really going to be more of an ongoing solution. And Onyx Jones, our chief financial officer, is actively working on a set of recommendations to come back to us with. But so far, we've already taken the city manager's initial recommendations for cuts for this year. But we're also, aware that the more cuts we make, the more people don't have jobs. So we're trying to make sure that we can make sure that we keep as many city employees employed as possible as we look at what to cut. And also, we really don't want to cut services at a point where even with the virus raging, Apple, Amazon, and HBO are still moving in. So we will still need to have robust services, particularly emergency services, with all the new people who will be working and living in Culver City just next year.
Great. Julia.
What would you recommend a Culver City resident to do today to help this current crisis we're going through?
I think for the most part, my first recommendation would just be to make sure that your family and your friends are following all of the orders and that you're protecting yourself at every turn. I think part of that is also making sure that you do go outside and get some sun and some vitamin D, but that you do it in a way that is socially distanced, so that you don't get the feeling that you've been trapped inside for weeks or months because you go outside regularly. But beyond that, if people are able-bodied and have personal protective equipment that can keep them safe, mask and gloves, sanitizer, bleach, and the like, you know, there are a number of groups that you can volunteer with, and we send that information out in our blast as well. And I'm pretty sure you can find that on culvercity.org/corona. And, you know, there are, you know, a number of religious groups, secular groups. There are a lot of places to touch down if you don't fall within one of the categories that it has a, you know, compromised immune system and shouldn't go outside. But first, make sure your friends and family are observing all of the distancing and, you know, health precautions. But secondly, if you can, you know, go out and volunteer if you have the appropriate protection.
Great. Does anybody else have anything else they want to ask?
How have you been doing?
I've been all right. I fall into one of those groups with a compromised immune system, so I have literally not left my apartment complex in 30 days. So I've learned how to run indoors fairly well. But I'm also, like, I just completed well, in the next week or so, the first year of my doctorate program, and I just had to do my first defense online. So I'm actually trying not to do much at all today and just watch some television and, yeah, not think too much.
Great. What about anybody else have anything? Any final questions? Well, thank you so much, Mr. Lee. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
No problem.
Thanks, you guys. Another great online KidScoop Media experience. So until the next one, thanks, you guys.
All right.
You.
Stay safe and healthy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.